Hello, welcome to the 4th episode of the 2020 KeSpa Cup reviews. I'm LinkingX2 and thank you for coming by. On today's 4th day of games, the teams of Group B are facing each other for the second and last time. In this video we're mostly going over the draft and team matchups, but you already know that. Before we start with the matches of Group B though, a quick note. Due to a positive COVID test, threaded BRION surrendered their matches for today and withdrew from the competition. So we don't get the 5 games, but just 3. Starting with the first one, Hanhwa liiv vs KT, Camille, Talia, Syndra, Kalista and Galio vs Aatrox, Nidalee, Victor, Samira and Alistair. In the top lane, Camille, while scaling fine, with her mobility and her passive shield, she can trade quite nicely into the Aatrox and have a good laning phase for the entire game, nearly winning from the start, first with just some couple CS leads and then after the Triforce power spike. Even though Aatrox with the Gore Drinker can do quite nicely in continuous trades, she will still outdamage him and then later on really beat him around the map. In the jungle, Talia and Nidalee, our common jungle matchup for now, both want to avoid the mid lane because of the AP situation, and with both control mages they're quite safe there. They can move to top, but for Talia for example the bot lane is more important and Nidalee may want to look for counter ganks or to gank the Kalista before she can really pop off. In the mid lane, as I said, we have these two control mages. Victor shoves the lane faster, so he has a slight lead here, but they do similar things. They both want to team fight here. One uses burst, the other one DPS. As there are no real tanks, Syndra's burst is a bit more effective in this game. Coming to the bot lane, Kalista obviously dominating in lane, getting some CS leads, while again Samira clearly outscales her later and has always this X factor of popping off and clearly dominating the game because, well, she's a bit overpowered at the moment. The support situation, Galio vs Alistair, had this one quite often in the last episode, so just remember Galio does more in lane, has faster roams, but Alistair still neutralizes the melee support matchup and protects her AD carry. Overall, Hanhwa liiv has the lead early on, top and bot in their favor, and having a neutral mid and jungle matchup, combine that with their better players, Hanhwa liiv has a clear edge here. Again, the only X factor for KT being the Samira pick, with her being, as I said, overpowered at the moment, and looking at Hanhwa liiv's team, they have little means to stop her in a team fight. So Syndra ult, it doesn't really work. Kalista and Galio combination, well, Samira has like 20 dashes and a flash, and again Alistair is also there on her side. Additionally, a champion like Camille and Galio can't really run at her, with Aatrox as a frontline and Victor's W as well, so she's quite safe. And even if they should blow all of their load on Samira and manage to take her down, there's an Aatrox and a Victor, as I said, who are barraging the team while doing so. If Samira is popping off, there's little Hanhwa liiv can do. And well, if you have watched the game, you saw that this was exactly the case. It was mostly on Samira, but we also had some great plays from Zeus, the Alistair, and Yukal, the Victor. And while Deft and Johan, Hanhwa liiv's jungler, were being quite irrelevant, as I said, the fat Samira, there was nothing they could stop them. Getting the Infernal Soul also didn't help much. Chovy though, playing great, nearly turning the game around in some fights, but yeah, the Kalista was too far behind. The team coordination overall wasn't on point as well. Dudu was able to get the lead that we all predicted due to the matchup. He wasn't really able to use this 1v1 advantage in the side lane. He was often called over for fights that they would then end up losing. KT gets that win and moves to 3-0 for now. Moving to the next match, GenG A Academy vs Hanhwa liiv, we see Renekton, Lilia, Zoe, Lucian and Braum facing off Ornn, Olaf, LeBlanc, Kai'Sa and Alistair. So Renekton and Ornn, I think I don't have to dive into this. Renekton has the lead in the map, but yeah, Ornn is completely fine. Even though Ornn may fall down in CS, nothing is going to happen. If Renekton doesn't watch out, Ornn can combo him and actually kill him at some item breakpoints. Overall, Renekton just has the early advantage and then later on does nothing. Lilia vs Olaf. Lilia obviously here likes Renekton, it's a good duo, and with Zoe they can make a great sleepover party in the mid lane. LeBlanc is probably not invited as she's distortioning away. Olaf wants to team up with LeBlanc on the other side to get to Zoe, as remember Zoe is an immobile mid laner, her ultimate is fake mobility as is Yon's E for example. In the mid lane Zoe LeBlanc It's a quite old matchup. In case you forgot, it's a skill matchup. The bubble and the distortion are being the key abilities here that can outplay each other. In this case, with Chovy playing, we can assume that the LeBlanc will have this, and then yeah, the LeBlanc can run away with this matchup. Normally though, Zoe has a chance here. As I said, it's actually a skill matchup. In the bot lane we have quite the unusual face-off. Lucian, Braum, Alistar and Kai'Sa on the other side. Lucian wasn't seen in the bot lane for quite a while, but him and Braum are a solid duo. Lucian has fewer levels here because he's in a duo lane than what we expect from him from the mid lane, but he's still quite good and quite potent, especially in the early stages. Combine this with Braum's passive and overall Braum's support in lane, quite a good duo. On the other side, Kai'Sa, weaker early game, GenG has the lead here. A player like Deft will likely screw the expected results a bit because of the skill gap, because of the champ advantage. Envy should be around even here. That's what we can expect. Obviously, if the player skill is even, the Lucian obviously has the lead here with the Braum sword as well. But still, Alistar and Kai'Sa, they should be quite safe. Alistar can't really protect Kai'Sa as much as he could do against a champion like Galio, because the Braum is able to use his Q too slow, so he doesn't have to come in melee range to be able to be knocked back from Alistar. Hanhwa liiv will have the early lead here though, through the mid and jungle duo, and they should probably use that to help the bot lane Lucian, as he wants to get the plates with his passive. This is mostly because of the players. On paper, GenG Academy has the good early comp, starting with the Renekton with the Lucian. In the mid-game skirmishes, if we ignore player strength again, Lucian versus LeBlanc is what we face off. Still the sad story of the AD carry versus the mid-lane assassin, and the other members of Hanhwa liiv are quite competent in mid-game fights as well. A strong Renekton and Lilia could do a lot though. On the other side, if GenG is able to play around that, still, how do you get the Renekton far ahead? Against the Ornn, it's quite unlikely. Still, if GenG ends up falling behind, as I assume they will have some issues here, as Renekton for example doesn't scale all that well, Lilia has no real frontline to play around, the short range of her and Lucian, they will be bullied by the Alistar and the Olaf, and later mainly LeBlanc. Summarizing, GenG's comp is fine, but the players have to use the champions as intended to get ahead. If they aren't able to do that, well then they lose. And with Hanhwa liiv having their best players in a skill matchup, like Chovy here, and a tank in front of GenG's top side where they want to attack, they have simple means to overcome this. And well, they did. LeBlanc was able to pop off, Renekton was not a factor at all, Lucian was neutralized because of the player skill, and Hanhwa liiv was then able to snowball effectively and win. Coming to our final and last match, T1 Academy vs KT. Vladimir, Olaf, Syndra, Kai'Sa, Gragas versus Ornn, Nidalee, Yone, Ezreal and Alistar. In the top lane, Vladimir, obviously he can farm quite easily and freely into the Ornn. He doesn't have Kleptomancy as it is removed from play. Still easy farm lane for him. He doesn't really is able to kill the Ornn unless everything goes out of control for KT. Still a fine lane for both of them. The Vladimir is more of a time bomb than the Ornn obviously. Olaf versus Nidalee, the 1v1 again in Olaf's favor. In terms of clear speed, obviously Nidalee, as one of the fastest junglers in that department, has the edge. The top 2v2 is obviously stronger for the Olaf Vladimir, but so often Ornn is not really a target to go after. In the mid 2v2, KT has a small advantage with their mobility, they have greater outplay potential, and for example they can dodge the abilities that T1 wants to throw at them, the Olaf axes, the Syndra orbs. They can dodge these quite easily. In the mid lane, as I said, Yone can dodge the orbs very easily. Also his manaless push in the early game and his E ability to trade into Miro without much he can do against it. Also obviously if mid laners end up in the side lane later on, the Yone has the clear advantage. So Syndra, she is not really under too much threat in the 1v1. Yone is the one hardly in control in this matchup. In the bot lane, Kai'Sa, Gragas vs Ezreal Alistar. Ezreal has the earlier spike with the cheaper items and the better laning phase. Again with the tier start, it's not as easy to bully the Kai'Sa as it was in the past. In this case against the Gragas, while he can out engage into the Alistar, he's annoying the Ezreal with his Q harass, and with the passive push of this AoE ability, This leads to an early control and early push for T1, but this then later with Ezreal getting his items and being able to poke the Gragas, who isn't really a tank. The CS lead for KT will come back, but won't be too great. KT has some scaling in their team, as well as good team fighters in Ornn, Yone and Alistair. T1 Academy can offer a late game Kai'Sa and Vladimir, who are also very powerful and potent. In the mid game, Syndra can also always be most useful, while Yone stays squishy, and while his damage is very high, he can and will explode if he isn't careful and isn't played correctly. Also, Olaf, who can walk around and soak up damage, is sometimes more useful than full damage Nidalee, who doesn't hit her spears. Her targets aren't as mobile as KT's, she should be able to hit them and be useful, but again, in the later stages, Olaf's HP is a bit more useful than a random spear from Nidalee into the Olaf. So while KT has good advantage in the early and mid game, if T1's carries get enough gold and XP, KT have to play on point. Their tanks and CC are always easier teamfight tools than the no frontline of T1, with the Vladimir and Kai'Sa just using their damage to disrupt what KT wants to do. On the other side, if KT doesn't slip up in the early game, scaling is irrelevant and KT's Yone and Ezreal can snowball over T1, who have no frontline to hide behind and as such can't really do much against the barrage of spells and Yone's E assassinations. Also, this is what we saw in game, mainly on the back of a good Yone performance. The rest of the game was plagued by T1 not really having all that much coordination. For example, there were many times where Roach, the Vladimir player, was trying to flank, but the team wasn't following up, or the team was disengaging as he was trying to engage. The team coordination for KT was just way better in combination with their leads they were able to get in the early game. KT was able to get the 4-0 in the first place here for Group B and join Dangwon in the bye for semis. That's it. Very short video here today, as we only had 3 matches, so thanks for watching. In the playlist you can find the previous KeSpa Cup review episode, or maybe you're interested in other off-season content, that as well you can find in the playlist or in the description below. Anyway, hope you had a good time. If you did, please leave a like or comment. Again, it really helps a lot. That's it for now though. Please stay safe and have some happy Christmas days. Bye.